Everybody knows Bobcat Goldthwait, the comedian, but I gotta say, as far as screenwriting goes, this stand-up takes his work pretty seriously. Howdy, I'm Jeff Goldsmith, senior editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, and I gotta say, I love this film when I saw it at the 2009 Sundance Film Festival, and I was really glad that I could get writer-director Bobcat Goldthwait into the screening series and podcast to discuss his latest film, World's Greatest Dad. I've been really impressed with Bobcat since seeing his Sundance debut, Stay, a few years ago, now retitled Sleeping Dogs Lie, because in my opinion, he's really living the dream in such that he's writing very quirky, slightly dark, and quite serious-minded films that really mean something to him, and aren't just being made in order to spark a huge sale. In fact, his secret is that he keeps his costs so incredibly low that it almost doesn't matter if you see the film, or what you even think of the film, because he's going to break even and then go right back out and do it again. I don't find this mentality arrogant in the least, because Bobcat's truly been able to satisfy himself as an artist and take us along for the ride. In fact, I'd say this is the greatest pathway towards true success, because you're not writing for a demographic, but are instead catering to your own most important sensibilities. Bobcat is still aware of the audience's needs, but he's not spoon-feeding them. And it's important to remember that, because when writers only consider themselves, but not their audiences, their writing usually suffers with a film that's usually only accessible only to them. Which is why it's so interesting that a comedian like Bobcat can dip into drama so well, because as a comedian, he's really honed his skills for figuring out what his audience will react well to, and is now able to extend that notion into his film's more dramatic moments as well, while at the same time hitting all the right marks comedically when appropriate. World's Greatest Dad is getting an interesting release, and such that it opens in LA, a few other cities this weekend, and is already available at least in the US on cable, on demand, and will be available on DVD quite soon, I think, as well. I hope the experiment works with this new kind of release, because it's been going on for a few years, and it basically allows for a wider rollout of an independent film through paid cable by feeding it into places that such films aren't always able to play in, which technically should be the goal of any smart-minded distributor. And hey, speaking of smart, the Screenwriting Expo podcast discount code is now available. It's CS Podcast. Entering that code online will save you 10% off the purchase of your admittance ticket to the expo, either at the regular rate or the Gold Pass rate. The Screenwriting Expo will be October 15th through the 18th, 2009 in Los Angeles at the Wilshire Grand Hotel in downtown. Guest speakers currently announced include Lethal Weapon's Shane Black, producing powerhouse Mike Medavoy, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy co-writer Carrie Kirkpatrick. You can check the site for other guest speaker announcements and for information on the Pitch Fest as well, all at www.screenwritingexpo.com. In other news, for those of you who don't know it, I finally joined Facebook and Twitter, so you can now follow Yo Goldsmith on Twitter or just type Jeff Goldsmith into Facebook. I set up a page on Facebook so you can become fans, which anyone could get full access to on the site, members and non-members alike. Now, for the record, I'm not some egomaniac that thinks he deserves fans. I'm just keeping my personal account personal on Facebook, which means rather than you becoming a quote friend and then seeing all my mother's crazy rants about how I need to stop saving so many magazines and should just throw some of them out, you should become a fan and skip all that and just chat film with me. But not with my mom. But hey, let's talk about swag again for a second. How's about a free audiobook? That's right, you could choose one of 40,000 different audiobooks as a free digital download by using the following link. Ready? Here it is. www.audiblepodcast.com/screenwrite. That's Audible, spelled AUDIBLE, podcast.com/screenwrite, spelled SCREENWRITE. So, people all over the world could still use the site itself, but only USA and Canadian listeners could take advantage of this deal, whereby after using that link, all you have to do is sign up for a 14-day free trial membership for the Audible Listener Gold monthly plan. And then you will be able to test drive the site by downloading one free audiobook of your choice. The cool part is that even if you decide to cancel the plan within your free 14-day trial period, that audiobook you downloaded is still yours to keep. Obviously, there's Michael Haig's Screenwriting for Hollywood or Robert McKee's Story, which are both solid choices, and Story is read by the one and only McKee himself for a runtime of 6 hours, or the equivalent of 6 of my podcasts these days. Other books you might want to check out, of course, include Robin Williams, since he's in the film. Check out the book from that great film he was in, The World According to Garp, by John Irving. You could also hear the comedy album, I Don't Mean to Insult You, But You Look Like Bobcat Goldthwait, by the man himself, or even some of the work that Bobcat did on the Uncabaret comedy series. So there's plenty of possibilities, amigos, and remember, it's all part of a 14-day free trial that allows you to download one book to keep, even if you cancel your trial membership within that 14-day period. The link again is www.audiblepodcast.com/screenwrite. And if you're still looking for more cool things to do online, don't forget to catch this week's Film Spotting podcast with hosts Adam Kempenauer and Maddie Robinson at filmspotting.net, where you'll find film reviews, interviews, and a lot of the cinematic chatter that you crave. But now, without further ado, let's jump right onto the stage of my packed screening right after I introduced writer-director Bobcat Goldthwait to discuss his latest film, World's Greatest Dad.
Thank you. Baja Fresh, represent.
As is our tradition, I'm going to present you with your very own copy of Creative Screenwriting Magazine. You are page 16 and 17, sir.
All right.
There you go.
That's it's nude, right?
Yes, that was the nude photo shoot.
Okay.
That took
because
months to
I was
coordinate.
actually nude when Robin was nude.
Really?
Yeah. Just because the pool was like all locked off and it wasn't that many people and yeah, how many chances do you get to jump off a diving board nude? So I took it and then they rolled on it. And funny now, but not so cool when your daughter's doing the behind the scenes making of. At least when they rolled on it, I just looked like a cherub, like a lawn cherub, like this little fat baby jumping off the diving board. But I guess in hindsight, we just had the premiere, and Robin's daughter saw it for the first time, and she's like, "Hey, way to go! Thanks for letting me." No, I was going to see my dad's hog. I was like, "Oh, sorry. Yeah, I guess." I thought he would have told her.
We always like to start with breaking in stories.
Well,
I want to hit a few things first before we get to this.
Because I have broken in.
True. You started as a stand-up comic. To my knowledge, your first screen role was in Massive Retaliation.
Yeah.
1984.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were in Police Academy 2, 3, and 4 as Zed, later Cadet Zed, and then finally Officer Zed, as you deserve to be.
Well, just the quality of the script of 6 was shit, and I said, "Look, I'll be in 2, 3, and 4." When did I stop making them?
4.
I don't know. They become a blur.
Blacked out on 5, and when they offered you 6, you said no way.
I don't know.
With every single franchise being revived these days, has anyone come to you now that you're a writer-director?
No. IMDb for the longest time said that I was rumored to be in Police Academy 8, and there is no Police Academy 8 that I'm aware of. I really hope Rob Zombie comes in and just reboots the series, seeing that.
I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, seeing that a couple of us are dead, that wouldn't be, not unless the CGI budget's huge. It would be like, Police Academy 8, Tackleberry, come on, let's get the bad guys. Tackleberry? Tackleberry! That's how that would go. Because that actor, David, has slipped off the mortal coil.
I was a fan of Shakes the Clown, your writing, directing debut.
Thanks.
Back in 1991. Really briefly, after the industry was waking up, after Sex, Lies, and Videotapes showed that there was an indie scene that could be marketed, that could be ticket buyers would come to. How did you raise funds for Shakes the Clown, the story of the alcoholic clown, and what was it like to pitch that around town?
It was funny you mentioned Sex, Lies, Videotape, because that's how it did get funded. It was the guy who helped make that movie, Larry Estes, and so... they thought he had the Midas touch, so I proved him wrong. This is a name-dropping story, but I was talking with Spike Jonze, and Spike Jonze was being very kind and talking about the movies we make, and I finally cut him up. I go, "Spike, I don't think you understand. My movies make hundreds of dollars." That's just the reality of it. I was doing an interview the other day, and the guy interviewing me got really snarky, and I finally said, "Hey, I don't know why you're being so mean. My movies don't make money, so I'm going to keep making them. So you're not really important." And then he could do to me,
Did you pitch the movie before?
Shakes the Clown? Yeah, I pitched it. I remember.
What was the pitch?
I said it's like Sid and Nancy meets Barfly, and
But with clowns.
But everybody's in clown suits. Yeah, I did say that too, actually. I go, but everybody's in clown suits. And I remember being at Universal and just bombing, like such a bad fart. And I'm looking at these executives at Universal, and I'm going, it's like Sid and Nancy with Barfly, and everyone's in clown suits. And the guy's staring at me, and I remember looking out the window at a billboard that was E.T., right? And I was like, I go, but it's got a little E.T. in it. It's got a little... And I couldn't stop laughing. I started giggling, and the meeting went worse. Like, the agent's like, no, he's got a whole script. And I was like, no, that's it,
I spoke with you briefly at Sundance, and you told me probably one of the zanier moments on the set was something that happened with your prop guy on Shakes the Clown. It puts you in kind of a imposition.
Oh, no, we had a prop guy that not the one that did the movie, but the one just before town. I don't know how zany that was, but he just took the money, bless you, and he went to Las Vegas.
He took your prop money, and he just went to Vegas.
Yeah.
And that affected your final prop in the film for the set piece.
Because when Julie Brown, she's supposed to be spinning around, but he left. He didn't have enough money to make the wheel go, so it's just.
So she's still.
She's just still, yeah. And
throwing knives
Tom
at her.
Kenny's throwing knives at her, yeah. Which is even better because Tommy's way, he really can't see. So there's a shot where he throws it. It's a plastic knife, but he hits a camera guy, and that's in the movie. They go, whoa, because he really did hit the camera.
I swear we're moving towards this film, but just a few other questions. You directed on the Chappelle Show.
Yeah.
It pushed a lot of boundaries. It was a great show.
Right.
What was one of your toughest challenges as a director on that show?
Well, I always thought the thing that was funny was one day I was working with Dave, and the Comedy Central executives came to the set, and they were like whispering to me. They were going, could you ask Dave not to say nigger so much? And I was like, Dave, the white Comedy Central executives would prefer it if you didn't say nigger so much. Which is funny. Like, was he offending them? I don't know. And then he's like, Pshaw, Bobcat, what did you say? But I really like Dave. I think he's a really sweet guy. I always wasn't surprised by him leaving because, it's just, it's a real box, and he's a really talented guy.
You were involved with one of the more elaborate practical jokes that I've seen.
Yeah.
You didn't write it, you directed it. It was a film called Windy City Heat.
Yeah.
It is absolutely ridiculous.
Thanks.
Give us, just for our listeners around the world, what would your pitch on that film be?
Well, I mean, that was really a lot of other folks. I'm not saying I wasn't involved, but it was really like a lot of other folks' baby, and then they had me come on board. But it's really hard to explain to people. They have to watch it and know that Perry's very real. Perry and I, we talk every couple of times a week sometimes, I remember
He still talks to you after the film?
Sure, yeah. I remember.
Sorry for our listeners.
It's hard. You know what? That movie's hard to explain.
I
you don't want to ruin it for people. Or Perry, and then this movie's hard to explain because I want people to have the experience of going to this movie and having the plot twist be revealed, and not in when some if I was a comedian, I went on stage and I didn't get laughs, you would say I was a bad comedian. But if you're a critic and you don't write a review, you just write down everything you saw at the fucking movie. That's not criticism. That's just somebody going, I went and I saw this, I thought, I didn't like it, or I liked it. Like, you're the kid that stood behind, teacher, you forgot to give us homework, 2 minutes before the bell went off. Like, why are you ruining it? And
Our point is to really get into your mind and kind of show people your process. On Windy City Heat, Perry kind of has special problems, you would say, and he wants to be an actor, and they stage an entire movie that is allegedly giving him his break, but he's not really in on the joke that the whole movie's a joke, featuring a producer named Hiroshima Nagasaki and a casting agent named Roman Polanski.
Right.
And of course, the finale of the film.
Roman Polanski.
Yeah, of course, the finale of the film when the president of show business,
Jeff Pearson,
Van Nuys Unfinished Film Festival Palme d'Or.
Yeah.
So I just got to ask you, because
And it was
everybody...
a lock because, whatever, there wasn't that many unfinished films that year.
Yeah, right. Everybody's debating on the internet. Is there anything you want to tell us? Is it real or is it not a joke?
Well, Jimmy likes to say when people ask me if it's real or not, to say that it's fake, because then it makes it spin out of control. But it's real. I mean, I wish it was fake, because the first assemblage was 18 hours long, and then the next one was 4.5 hours long. But I think we're we're this nation where we want to spoil everything. I know I sound kind of ticked off about that, but as a boy, I used to think three things. I thought we'd all have jetpacks, and I thought robots would take most of our jobs, and I guess robots have taken a lot of jobs. And then the other thing was that Big Brother was going to be spying us, but that's not what happened. What happened was we spy on us. We're a nation of finks, and everybody can't wait to ruin secrets and stuff. It's like there's some huge plot twists in this movie. The reason I didn't promote it that way is I thought the tone of the movie continues after the thing. Like if it's not Marley and Me, I mean, or what was that movie where they killed Macaulay Culkin? I remember that one. Good Son, was that it? Yeah, that's not that. It's The Bad Son. Now I just ruined it for people.
Our point, again, is not spoilers, but when we get into things that are spoilers, I'll give a spoiler alert. You had a real career changer a few years ago with Stay, which I think has a lot related to this film. It was later retitled Sleeping Dogs Lie. It's a crazy concept, and again, I would love to have you pitch it to our worldwide audience in case they haven't seen it.
I mean,
because the pitch is incredible.
It's a romantic comedy with a tasteful amount of bestiality, but it's really just a hint of it, and it's not...
What did you think of the reviews of it? Because some reviewers didn't understand how to handle the subject material and get into the real theme of the film, which was the search for truth, and whether or not knowing the truth is a good thing.
I always liked the reviewers that said, this is a one-joke movie, and it's like, well, that wasn't the joke. Do you know what I mean? That was one joke. And I think that's, I blame those movies with Cameron Diaz getting jizz in her hair, because... that was like the beginning of, what can we do to people? We'll poop on them. So that would be one joke. What's the next one? All right, then we fist them. I mean, if this was one joke, it would be kind of limited. But, these things do happen in these movies. But, Crimes and Misdemeanors with Woody Allen, speaking of crapped on, his sister gets crapped on by a stranger in that movie. But... do we all call it movie?
And it's a brilliant movie. You've been searching in this movie, tonight's movie, and obviously in Stay for what Emmy Award winning and Peabody Award winning journalist Stephen Colbert would call truthiness. Talk about your attraction to this theme in these two movies about the search for truth for a second.
Well, I mean, to me, that's the stuff that is interesting. So I mean, that's these two movies. That's been the theme is honesty and the lies that we tell ourselves to get through the day. You keep saying Stay, and it throws me off. We had to change the name because it was originally Sleeping Dog. It was called Stay, and then Sleeping Dogs Lie because Mark Forster has a movie called Stay, and I always secretly hope that there's people that rent that Stay and go, Jesus, I'm into it 45 minutes, and Naomi Watts didn't blow a dog. When is it gonna, when's it gonna kick in? Spoiler alert.
You were talking a second ago about set-piece comedy, and I think you've really developed an amazing skill for character-driven comedy over set-piece comedy. As you were just saying, you don't want these obstacles of these little set pieces of gags. You really want things to happen to the characters. Talk about just during your writing process how conscious you are, if you are, of writing for character. Because I mean, I think the lazy road is what you were describing these days, in which is just set piece to set piece to set piece, rather than the character's experience in it.
I mean, these last two screenplays were written with the end in mind first. In fact, I wrote the end of this movie first, and the same thing with the last movie. So I thought, well, who is this son where the dad gives that speech? So And so I went backwards, and that's how I tend to write. But I really don't, and I'm not trying to be cute, but I don't sit down and go, wow, I'm really gonna, blow everyone's ass to their face when they see this. When these events happen. Unfortunately, this is how I talk to my friends. These are the things we talk about. People always say that the movies I make are dark, but I truly don't believe that these two movies are dark. They are, to me, upbeat, life-affirming movies. It's just that they're covered in a lot of muck, but that's,
That's life, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be easier to, have an end where, the point is, what the fuck, everything's shit, and be very nihilistic. But I almost feel it's harder and a little bit more subversive to put a positive end. And that's the other thing that cracks me up when people go, as if like the end, I go, oh, it's a very Hollywood ending. Like the last 5 minutes, I went, fuck, I better win everyone back, I better make this commercial, and have like 7 puppies run up to Robin in slow motion, and Daryl come out of a door. Psych.
It'll be the most commercial movie about asphyxiation, masturbation, deaths I think ever made.
I don't know.
Maybe not. You have a very interesting writing process that involves hotel rooms to kind of sequester yourself to get away from all the distractions. Tell us about that, because I think it's a really brilliant idea.
Well, I mean, it's not as soon as I go to a chain quality hotel first of all, and it's usually kind of not nice on purpose. So the idea is that I don't get comfortable and I don't just I don't want to be there. So I get in a really uncomfortable place. So, and then it makes me want to finish, and it makes me not want to do anything else. There's nothing to do. It's usually, I do know now that I don't smoke, it's probably less weird. But it would just be, smoking and eating, room service, or not room service, like pizzas and smoking until I got done with the screenplay. And I do write them kind of quick. Like this one was 5 days, and the one.
Really, it was 5 days?
Yeah, but my detractors would say, he probably should have spent another day or two on that. But clearly, if you see my movie, if you're a writer, you learn the trick is, and I think South Park stumbled on it. It's just montage, It's great.
I think it's smart that you... A lot of writers have trouble getting the first draft done, but if I'm hearing you right, I would assume that once you manage to clear a first draft in 5 days, it does give you time to rewrite it as you're casting, getting it out. Did you? Sure. Would you say that you rewrote it significantly? Were there any major changes?
Well, we I don't know about rewriting, but we're always working on it, and here's the thing. It's like once you have your theme nailed down, and I knew what this theme was, that where Lance says, I used to think the worst thing in life is ending up all alone. It's not the worst thing in life is ending up with people that make you feel all alone. And that was pretty much the first line I wrote. So then you go from there. I mean, that's same thing on the last movie, same thing. And I know people complain that VO and all that are corny, but so many of my favorite movies have it, so I'm not gonna.
But you didn't overbear it with the voiceover, so it worked out just fine.
No, and we never used it as like a fix, and then I had to figure out a good way to,
right.
It wasn't right around then, old Boss Hogg had an idea of his own,
I mean, it was great because it only comes into the beginning and the end. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Your habit, would you say that it was kind of seen on screen a little when Robin Williams is trying to write over the Furious Weekend to write the journal? Was
that's similar, but without the weed, without the grass.
Okay. What do you do when you encounter writer's block, if you do?
I wouldn't say writer's block. What I do encounter a lot is I go off, and like these scripts came out really fast, and I write a lot of other screenplays and they don't come out that fast, and my process really is I finish this screenplay and I give them to my girlfriend, and and then she tells me if we should make it. Because I really trust her. She's the one that read Sleeping Dogs Lie, and she said, this is a really good screenplay. And I was like, wow. She goes, we should make it. I go, I don't have any money. And she goes, well, we'll just start. So we shot it in 2 weeks with a crew from Craigslist, and we had friends too, but a lot of and a lot of stolen stuff from various movies and television sets. So,
What was your budget for Sleeping Dogs Live?
initially it was like $50,000, you know.
Wow.
So, and then once we sold it, then we could afford to make prints and all that, and then But that movie for me was really awesome. It went around the world, and I always said to you, for if you're thinking about making movies and stuff, you should just really do it because. I always think about the fact that movie got into Sundance. So I imagine that day at Sundance when there's like 3,000 or 4,000 screeners come in and they go, "Oh, we got the movie from the guy from Police Academy." I'm sure they're going, "Yeah, this ought to be in the main competition." They go, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch that right after we watch a Screech's movie." So, and I just tell that because I hope that inspires you guys just to. Go out and get your friends and make a movie,
Absolutely, man. You're in a really good place right now where, as you said earlier, you're writing more for yourself rather than for commercial expectations.
Yeah, no, that's all I write for. I make my living as a stand-up comedian, and I make these movies because it's just what I really am driven to do,
I loved it because obviously the protagonist considered himself a writer. He was a writer. Throughout the movie, everyone keeps giving him encouragement. The beginning of the movie says it's his 5th book, and if it doesn't get some interest, he's going to give up, and evereverone keeps giving him.
But then he's writing for all the wrong reasons,
Right.
He's and I did it cartoonish, but he's thinking about girls and money, and clearly I think that's the wrong reason to make art, and then he also has a very immature idea of making it. I really find that kind of absurd.
But many times he's thinking of giving up. Was there ever a point when you were thinking of giving up, and people had encouraged you to keep writing?
No. No.
Good.
People don't really encourage these scripts.
But you were never going to give up.
No, yeah, or these movies. As a matter of fact, my friend Mike's here. I tell him the movies. He's kind of a good luck charm. I say I have an idea, and I tell him, and then about 2 years later, they're done. So.
One of the things I love about it is it's almost like an anti-after-school special, because the kid who dies, you didn't paint him in the cheesy Hollywood sympathetic fashion where he just had a simple masturbation accident. I mean,
right.
You almost make him unlikable for a lot of the movie. Talk about developing that character. I mean, I don't mean unlikable like I hated him, but he's not a good son. His father really cares about him. It's not the easy way out.
No, he's a horrible person. I think for some reason, kids get a free pass, If someone's mentally challenged or someone's a kid and they're in a movie, they're they're crapping fucking unicorns and rainbows, or they're psycho killers. Like if a deranged, if like a mentally challenged person's on camera, they're either deranged killer or they're this beautiful person. Same thing with kids and children, and I don't know why they get a free pass because I've been around children that were horrible, and I've been around very unpleasant, mentally challenged people. I know that sounds weird. It's not like I'm trying to take them down a notch, I'm not. But I just don't know why they're not allowed to be accurately portrayed.
As I said earlier, I really enjoyed Sleeping Dogs Live, but here directorially again, you were really flexing some muscle. I loved your style in this movie. It was show that you were growing again as a director. You made a really interesting choice. Spoiler alert for our listeners around the world.
Spoiler. I think people are getting it anyway.
The scene when Robin Williams discovers his son dead.
Yeah.
He's giving a great performance because he was excellent in the film, but you covered it with music.
Yeah.
That was an interesting choice. What gave you that idea?
Just because, like, that moment to me, just seems like those moments can be really over the top, and you want to almost protect the audience from it being a made-for-TV movie. And I also like the idea of up until then, we're kind of everything is what it is. It is Lance's view of the world, and that's the first time the camera actually. Not the first time; it's actually the second time. But the camera kind of leaves him, and we're kind of forced to be viewers of this instead of on his his journey.
You were joking earlier about some people using montages as a crutch.
There's a lot of montages.
No, but you actually did an excellent montage where the school is all reading the note and they're seeing him as a ghost.
Oh, yeah.
But each student sees their own version in their mind of him. That was a great sequence. Talk about that.
Well, I think what's funny is, Richard Kelly's one of the producers. He's a very sweet guy and nice guy and has some good ideas.
Of Donnie Darko.
Yeah, but, there's that scene where the ghost of Kyle is walking behind the Lance Robbins character and haunting him, and
in the glass.
He's in the glass, and Richard's like, yeah, how'd you do that? I was like, I put a really bright light on the kid and made him walk behind the camera, and then we turn it off. And he goes, oh, because he thought it was a special effect. And he's like, where'd you get that idea? I was like, the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. And I was like, I'm aware that, like, I don't, on these movies, the camera's not whipping around for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of reasons, but one reason is, as I'm talking to you, if I was talking to you instead of just being a blowhard, I wouldn't be slowly moving towards you. I know it would take me out of the movie, but and I think another reason why the shots aren't overly designed, because I really don't know 100% what the scene's about when we film it. We're like figuring it out.
Is rehearsal important?
Rehearsing, but then all of a sudden, we do take a different way, and we keep, it keeps evolving. So if I was married to some shot, Mike said that the movie is it's like an episode of Degrassi, and then it becomes stylized, after the speech. But that's supposed to be in my mind when I was writing this. I was trying to write my version of a Wes Anderson movie, so I thought that there had to be a slow motion running scene to a English pop song. So that's
check.
That's really what that is about,
Was there ever a funeral scene? Because it was a good jump in time. I didn't miss it, but it was interesting because you almost.
Oh yeah, I didn't have a funeral scene because then all of a sudden we had to make Mom a real character, and then I didn't. Okay. I just didn't want to go. And then all of a sudden, and I did kick around a funeral, and then once I did that, I realized, now we're all about Kyle, and Kyle is just one of the bad relationships in Lance's life that he needs to, grow a pair and say, no, man, it's not cool when you do that. It's not cool. That's what I hope and think Lance is saying at the end of the movie to his son. That's not cool, and that's not cool, and that's not cool. I think some people confuse me for hating people, and
no, actually, I thought it was smart that you saved the eulogy for the end. So, I mean, like at the library.
Yeah, that's true.
It made a lot of sense to do that.
Yeah.
Was there any relation to Robin Williams' character teaching a poetry class from Dead Poets Society?
No, I didn't write it with
which
Robin.
Which also has a suicide.
I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I wouldn't
Spoiler
write
alert.
I wouldn't have written a movie for Robin where he plays a poetry teacher. I feel like that's pretty played out, and but I am glad I've said this. That I'm glad that we cut out the scenes where he came to work every day in an egg.
Very smart, very wise.
It was wise. Yeah. Now it
would have been too
brilliant.
soon.
Yeah.
Getting notes from Richard Kelly. You also had told me at Sundance that Dayton Ferris had given you some good notes.
Yeah,
Talk about those.
Jonathan and Valerie are old friends of mine from when I did stand-up and stuff, and we're still friends. So I hadn't seen him in a while, and at Sleeping Dogs Lie, they had seen that movie, and I hadn't seen him, and I saw him in the hall, and they were crying when they saw me, they started crying, and I started crying because it was obvious their eyes were all puffy from crying at the movie, So when I was editing this one, I would show it to them, and then, they had some good notes. Their notes was that, when I would go on stage as a comedian, I used to always they said this, Jonathan said, you always would make a point and then stick the knife in and then twist it. I go, okay. And he says, and then you twist it a couple more times. I go, yeah. I go, so there's a couple of these jokes that you keep twisting and twisting. And he was right. They're no longer in the movie. But He wasn't talking about the Bruce Hornsby thing, but...
Where did you get that idea, and how hard was it to get Bruce to come be in the movie?
Bruce ends up being a friend of my friend Tony Berg, and I wanted somebody that the dad actually listened to, and I liked the idea of inviting somebody into the movie that people have one perceived notion of him from the 80s, and then find out that they can do other things. I thought that was an idea that I should explore.
It was good. Spoiler alert again, because we're going to really talk about the endings here for a second. In the end of Sleeping Dogs Lie, she reveals the truth because she feels she needs to, and it seems like there's a thematic that sometimes you don't need to know the truth and you're better to live without it. Here at the end, it's very interesting that he's achieving all of his goals. He's getting acclaim for his writing. He's starting to be able to live vicariously that way, and he's even offered his own book deal so he can move beyond it. You've shown repeatedly throughout the film how his notes and journals have helped other students, but he's slowly cracking, and he reveals to them that he doesn't want to live his life as a phony. Talk about that realization kind of going on the back of Sleeping Dogs Lie.
Well, I guess they are the flip side. One is about, how it's okay to lie sometimes, and then this one's the flip side of that. I just didn't. I don't know where I stand. I know where I think it's okay to lie when the lie doesn't make you look better, and it's not a lie that's going to benefit you. If you're actually doing it out of kindness, I think that's an okay lie. Clearly, many women that I've lived with over the years, their ass did look fat in those jeans. I told them that her ass looked beautiful, and those are great jeans for her. It didn't benefit me. Maybe it did, but maybe that's a bad example. But you know what I mean. I think this idea of unconditional love, and lies, and I am fascinated by the lies that we tell ourselves to get through the day. I said it before, but it's true, you walk down the street and you go, oh, I'm not going to give this hobo $1 because he's sketchy, or I am going to give this hobo $1. Just all these weird lies that we what is the truth and what are we doing, and who are we as a people? I know that all sounds really pretentious. Quite often when I hear an interview with myself, I want to punch me in the throat. Because,
it seems like the Dr. Dana scene was a great cracking point for the character. I love it, the fact that he's laughing and crying at the exact same time.
That's my favorite scene, because there's an example of a scene that was written, but that wasn't written into the scene. And Rob and I were like going, man, this doesn't feel honest or right. We knew something was wrong, and I just said, well, just play think about how absurd all this is, and just think about how absurd everything is, and how exhausted we are, and what the fuck is going on, and who are we, and then we go, and then he did it, and he fell apart, and he goes, I think I had a real breakdown. I really think I had a breakdown. And I was like, oh, can you do it again? And it was a true story, and he goes, I think so. And then they wiped the little tears off his eyes, and we did it again. And I love the actress because she's actually a news reporter from Seattle, and she just doesn't crack, She just keeps drilling them, And so
it was a fantastic scene. At Sundance, you mentioned something about the ending in which the pool concept was not in your original script, and it came later. Talk about when you realized, because I love it as an ending.
There's a couple things in the movie that's not there. There's the pool. Robin being naked, that was his idea. He said, I think I should be naked.
How did you know you needed the pool scene? Because I could have seen it ending in the library.
Because I just thought, because the idea is that Lance is supposed to be okay by himself, and then I hadn't written a scene where he was by himself. And that was the scene where he's by himself, he's okay, he's actually smiling. And then, it's pretty, I might as well just have an umbilical cord hanging out. I mean, yeah, okay, birth, we get it. Well, his umbilical cord is hanging out, actually.
But it goes, there's a callback earlier where he says he was diving in college, so he's taking a dive.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I wrote that in once we came up with the pool thing, because I wanted to to be something that was something he stopped doing and something that he didn't think he was good at doing. And once again, going back and doing something for the right reasons. And the other scene that really wasn't in the script was I was afraid that Lance got over Kyle's death too soon. So that scene where he's in the crying in the newsstand, and looking at porn and he's crying. That was.
But who doesn't cry while looking at porn?
It's but that's Chris from Nirvana, and I called him up because I used to open for Nirvana. I was like, hey, I want you to be in the movie, and he's like, why? And I go, because you're funny, and he is a funny guy. And so we're filming it, and he's like, well, what's this going on? What's going on? I go, when someone dies and everybody rewrites the person, especially people who didn't know them, and they make it all about them, and they forget the people that actually did know the person, and they don't have any concern for those people's feelings. He goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. So he kind of smiled at that point, and I had set the hook, and he was in.
What was your budget and your schedule on this film?
The budget was about a half a day of Night at the Museum 2. And,
are you sure about that? Because it was a very expensive film.
Yeah. It might have been a whole half a day, So, once Robin came on board, Robin read the script because he was going to, I found this out just recently, he was looking for a small role to do because he was going to try to help me get funding, like he was going to play a teacher or something like that. And then he read it and wanted to play Lance, which I really didn't have. I didn't realize he was going to do any of that. He called me after dinner. He's like, hey, I want to play the guy. And I was like, wow. So everything changed. For me, that meant that we could have permits this time, and we could and shoot it on 35 and all that. But
what was your shooting schedule, and where did you shoot?
It was in Seattle. We were up in Seattle. Did you say where?
Yeah. And how long?
It was a little, like about 4.5 weeks.
It's great. Last question before we turn it over to the crowd, because I know we're limited on time. What would you say was your toughest scene to write? The one that you kept coming back to, tweaking, reworking, kept you up at night?
It didn't keep me up at night, but we already touched on those two scenes that were kind of like weren't working for me, even though they were in the script. And that was the talk show was one that just didn't seem right. So that was, I'm really glad I didn't scratch it out because it's one of my favorite scenes. And then, I was concerned. I did feel that I didn't want people to start not liking, or not, I shouldn't say liking, but stop empathizing with Lance if he suddenly just got over his kid. So that scene in the street there with the porn mags.
Great. Time for one or two questions from the crowd. Question was in regards to your tone. She loved the way you managed it, and was again curious if the music was to reinforce the tone and stop the movie from getting too heavy.
Well, yeah. The funeral wasn't about, like, I didn't think it was going to take it into a depressing area. It is what I said earlier. I did feel that the funeral was going to all of a sudden introduce Mom, and all of a sudden it was going to be weird that it would have been Kyle's kind of trip and journey that we would have had to focus on more. But the music was different. I'd once heard that Cameron Crowe on a set will play music, and he'll say, I think this scene should go like this. And when I heard that story, I just wanted to throw up. And then lo and behold, in this movie, that's what I was doing. I was like, this is the music I'm going to play during this scene. And Robin was like, yeah. So I was actually playing that song that he is, while he's crying and rolling on, that was being played on a little tiny boombox. And a lot of the music in the movie was actually being played. It's so funny because Cameron Crowe is, when Robin runs down the hall, I actually have a boombox, I'll say anything, playing under pressure. So those are all things I never thought I'd do.
Over there, you on the all. Is there a list of the music?
Oh, yeah. The funny you should say that. The album is available on iTunes. So
cool.
It makes it feel more like an actual movie to me that the soundtrack's available, including such hits as Principal Anderson saying, "Thank you, Bruce Hornsby,"
which was awesome.
So there's like a lot of that in the movie.
One or two more questions. Right there, you, sir. Bold choice for you to have a child unliked by the parent. Was that something that came from your own life?
My daughter's a douche. No, she's not at all. But no, it was really about writing a thing. I don't think Lance never stop loving his kid before, after, or during, you know. And, you know, there's just those, without sounding too Dr. Phil, there's just those toxic people that there is no right or wrong thing. I mean, I do think Lance should have grown some balls and said, hey, you don't treat me this way. You know, he could have even said, I love you, but you're not allowed to. I am turning into Dr. Phil. You can say, I love you, but you don't do that.
We're going to get you, sir, in the red. You had a question. Were you inspired by the James Fry incident, and what were your thoughts?
I wasn't, well, I will say this, you know, I certainly, when I got to that point in the script, I was inspired by that. I thought it was funny. But it's not really a satire or parody of that. You know, at that point, it was just, I was like, wow, I was excited. Anything you can actually put into something that seems very realistic, for me, you know, that means, oh, good, it holds water. You know, I thought it was funny. As one of the criticisms of this movie was, there's no justification for what the father does. That comes out of nowhere. Why would a father do that? Why would a father make his son's death look like a suicide?
That's ridiculous.
Well, because he loved his son, and
wanted to say,
but the other thing that's funny is like that should have been justified. And it's like, well, unfortunately, that's what the majority of parents do when they find their kids this way. The majority of the parents, which says so much about our culture. What the fuck, you know? It's like, I'd rather you thought my son was manic depressive than experimenting with unsafe, weird sex. That's fucked up.
What's next? At Sundance, you pitched something to me about another writer protagonist, Sorority, I love it, who is stuck writing a movie called Easter
I did write
Day.
that. I wrote that. There's a screenplay about a guy who's stuck writing this piece of shit movie called Easter Dad. And
is it Easter Dad or Easter Day?
Easter Dad. He's in the middle of a pitch, and he keeps pitching, and he just like the story I told earlier, you know, and they're going, it all sounds a little dark, and then he sees that these Santa Claus movies that are on the wall in the studio made a lot of money. So he says, this is about I have one other. It's about a dad who finds the true meaning of Easter. And they go, really? Tell us more. So he's tortured writing this fucking turd about, he doesn't even know what the true meaning, his agent's going, that's so great, the true meaning of Easter. And they go, the true meaning of Easter is they killed a Jew. That's the true meaning. And Mel Gibson already made that movie. So that was one movie I wrote.
What was that titled?
It's called Easter Dad at this point.
Good.
Because I keep trying to make movies that have titles that make you think that there's something else. So anybody who would be interested in this movie.
World's Greatest Dad is a family film.
Yeah, I know. People see this, you know, and they think it's RV2, and it's, you know.
Is there anything else you're working on or getting ready to shoot?
No, I'm writing a spree killer movie, and then
a spree killer?
Yeah, you know,
serial killer.
Spree killer. It's like it's a guy who's watching a show that's very similar to My Super Sweet 16, and then gets in his car and kills the girl. And
does it have a title?
No. Well, the Untitled Dakota Fanning Project is what I'm calling it right now. But she's not the girl. There's this misfit girl who sees him, and she's like, did you just kill, you know, Amber or whatever? And he doesn't say anything. She's like, cool. So they go out and start killing people. That one I wrote for my girlfriend. Just says, I usually write these screenplays for somebody. This one I wrote for me. Easter Dad I wrote for my daughter. And the spree killer ones I'm writing for my girlfriend.
I love your work. I can't wait to see what you do next. Give it up again for writer-director Bobcat Goldthwait.
Thanks.
And that's how the Q&A went down. Special thanks again to writer-director Bobcat Goldthwait for coming on down and spending time chatting with me. If you dug this episode of the podcast in general, consider tossing a virtual tip into our PayPal virtual tip jar by visiting www.creativescreenwritingmagazine.blogspot.com and look for the PayPal icon. Your tips are appreciated and definitely help out with equipment, hard drives, and all the other stuff we need to keep this podcast running. Of course, feel free to check out my blog, which I even managed to update on the rare occasion that I have time to do so by visiting www.jeffgoldsmith.blogspot.com. You can also always feel free to drop me a line by emailing me at yo.goldsmith@gmail.com, and I'll do my darndest to get back to you as soon as I can. Of course, don't forget to click that subscribe button in iTunes or your podcatching software, because that's how episodes are downloaded automatically every time you click refresh. And if you have a minute, feel free to leave us positive feedback in the iTunes Music Store or at podcastalley.com. I'm Jeff Goldsmith, Senior Editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, thanking you again for tuning in and telling you to stay out of trouble. Till next week.